Have you ever noticed how the human brain actively edits out the bad parts of our past? Psychologists call this selective memory. In continuing education classes for lawyers, instructors teach that if you have to stage an intervention for a colleague, you must bring specific, documented examples of their destructive behavior. Without that hard evidence, the human ego simply erases the negative memories to protect itself. This cognitive bias actually acts as a survival mechanism. It allows us to justify future actions despite past suffering. It's the exact reason why anyone who has lived through the exhausting, sleepless reality of raising a first child can somehow convince themselves to have a second. But this protective editing leaves us deeply vulnerable. When sudden, devastating tragedy strikes, our flawed memory leaves us without a reliable framework. We haven't practiced holding on to the hard truths, so we're left desperately asking, why is this happening? And looking for saviors in all the wrong places. You can see this crisis playing out in the wake of catastrophic earthquakes in places like Venezuela. In the blink of an eye, entire communities lost their homes, and many people lost absolutely everyone they loved. To survive the inherent uncertainty of a world where tragedy strikes without warning, we have to overcome our own cognitive bias. We can do this through an ancient three-part framework called remembering faithfully. It is a deliberate discipline designed to ground us in truth rather than comforting illusions. The first pillar of this framework is praise. Remembering faithfully begins by aggressively recognizing and naming our blessings and historical triumphs. Take the founding of the United States as an example. The nation was built by a group of deeply compromised men, yet they managed to author a glorious, entirely new idea for a society. This document codified a singular, powerful premise: the recognition of the sacred, inalienable worth of all human beings. But gratitude is incomplete on its own. It brings us to the second pillar, perspective. Our thankfulness must instantly be balanced with historical honesty and a clear confession of our failures. To achieve this perspective, we adopt an ancient framework, Talmudic logic. It abandons binary thinking, requiring us to hold opposing truths in tension simultaneously. Historically, this means recognizing ourselves as both the liberated heroes and the oppressors guilty of systemic failure. Acknowledging these deep contradictions is a necessary defense. It protects us from the toxic temptation of self-celebration and the cultural idolatry that blinds us to our own flaws. True perspective requires a sobering realization. Even when our human institutions are functioning at their absolute best, everything we build is temporary. This brings us to a central warning found in the ancient text of Psalm 146. Do not put your trust in princes. It is a reminder that all human institutions, alliances, and political leaders will eventually fail. History proves this. Rome confidently called itself the Eternal City, yet it ultimately fell to Germanic tribes, leaving behind little more than decaying monuments. Sacred institutions share this vulnerability. Ancient foundations are just as susceptible to the passage of time and the brutal forces of nature as any political power. In Antioch, one of the world's first Christian churches stood for thousands of years. Today, after a massive earthquake, that historical sanctuary is reduced entirely to rubble. This reality extends right into the modern era. Even the most benevolent contemporary rulers watch helplessly as brand new infrastructure is wiped out in an instant. In the Caribbean, prime ministers mourned the destruction of brand new hospitals, schools, and roads, completely erased by a single hurricane, all human plans rendered useless. Witnessing this universal failure of human power isn't meant to cause despair. Instead, it strips away our illusions of control, forcing us to rethink where we place our trust and pushing us to find a much more permanent anchor. The final pillar of this framework is purpose. Admitting that we lack the power to save the world triggers a profound psychological shift. Think of it like surfing. If you try to control the ocean, you will be crushed by it. It is only when you acknowledge the ocean's vast power and your own physical vulnerability that you are truly free to paddle out and ride the waves. In our daily lives, relinquishing the heavy burden of long-term global salvation frees up our energy for what is called present obedience, the simple act of doing the right thing right now. This is exactly what those grieving pastors in Venezuela are doing right now. They are processing their own immense trauma, yet they still manage to hold space and serve their broken communities. Remembering faithfully means taking direct, immediate responsibility for the vulnerable people right in front of us. It means feeding the hungry, seeking out the lonely, and supporting those held hostage by addiction or fear. Modern life traps us in an exhausting binary. We catastrophize when our political leaders fail, and we gloat when they succeed. But this ancient framework offers a quiet, steady confidence that doesn't rely on whoever happens to be in charge. By refusing to put our trust in fleeting human power, we are liberated from existential anxiety. We are freed to build a kingdom defined by mercy and justice, one single day at a time.